I remember there was just an anecdote in one of your books, in the British Dream book, about people, you were having dinner at some function with, pretty top brass civil servant, I believe, and an academic, and there you relate how their whole approach to the world was entirely global. It was that they felt they had an obligation to people as strong in other countries as to here. That they would be, I suppose, classic anywheres, would they not?
Extreme anywheres, yes. I mean, I actually named them. I mean, I used the anecdote twice. I used it in the British Dream, but the civil servant in particular was still, I think, head of the civil service at the time, so I didn't actually name him. I did name them both in The Road to Somewhere. It was Gus O'Donnell. Gus O'Donnell. I was sitting next to Gus O'Donnell at a dinner at Nuffield College, and I said I was writing a book about immigration, and he said, when I was at the Treasury, I was always in favour of kind of, as much immigration as possible. And we sort of talked a bit further, and he came out with what I thought was an absolutely astonishing thing to say, particularly if you're head of the National Civil Service, which is that, I believe in maximising global welfare, not national welfare. And I happened to be sitting that the man to my left these were probably the two most powerful unelected people in Britain at the time. Gus O'Donnell, and to my left was Mark Thompson, who was then head of the BBC. And I said to Mark, did you just hear that? The head of the National Civil Service just said that he thought it was his job to maximise global welfare. And Mark Thompson said, well, I agree with him, of course. That sort of, I think, was one of the kind of inspirations for writing both of my books, actually, in a way.
But it is extraordinary because these people are hugely high up, very emblematic of that attitude. In some ways, surely, Brexit was a revolt against that, and the anger which has been now directed, I would say, at Brexiteers, comes from that sort of attitude, and people feeling, actually they've had their way for a very long time, and they're just angry that somehow it's being challenged in some way.
You mean the Remainers?
Yes.
Yeah.
You are a Remainer yourself, are you not?
I voted Remain. Yeah. I mean, I think we should respect the vote. I think we should leave the European Union. But yeah, I voted. Largely for reasons of sort of small c conservatism in a way. Everybody was voting in a way for reasons of small c conservatism. But yes, I think it is slightly depressing the way in which the political class has which is what sort of 70% Remain, if not more. Certainly, Parliament has. I do think it is very. I think what has happened. Obviously, what has happened has been partly determined by the fact that the government has not had a majority in Parliament. But there is a sort of deeper. There's something sort of more deeply depressing about it. I think it really is the sort of be careful what you wish for, that we have spent so much of the last 30 years or so talking about expanding the boundaries of individual freedom, about welcoming diversity, about feeling happy that we are in a way becoming a more fragmented and pluralistic society, that we pursue different faiths, we have different values, and yet still more or less manage to kind of live together more or less peacefully. And yet it has clearly taken its toll. The fact that on something as important as this, we have not been able to, the different sort of factions in Parliament have not been able to submerge or suspend their differences for the greater common good. The fact that we haven't been able to work out what the common good is, I think it shows that there's been a sort of draining away of that, both of the sort of almost the kind of technical ability to come to compromises. Everyone has been sort of head down pursuing their own narrow goal, and not looking up and deciding what, and fashioning a decent compromise that takes us out of the European Union, but in a way that is not, so alienating for the 48% of the population that voted to remain. And I think, yes, I think it is a rather depressing sign of the times that sort of collective sort of intuition almost to come together over and find a common good, has just become weakened.